what I found very interesting about asking people this question were the different answers that they came up with. And I'm sure that, like, your answer had something to do specifically with your life and your circumstances. Other people's have as well, or something about what they've learned and what they've known. What is very interesting about that question as a whole for me is it's easier for us to imagine something like, what if the past had been like this? What if it had been like that? It's easier to do that than it is often to do that with the future, which has so many parts to it that are unknown. With the past, we know the parts, so we can kind of re-put them together, refigure them out, and the whole hindsight is 2020 thing. Um, but in terms of our imagination, I think that that's true too. Marianne is saying that, we're suffering from a lack of a political imagination. And so this first question is meant to start sparking that political imagination. And if you could imagine something in the past being different, and then that then leading towards your life at this moment, have there being a difference, then voting for something different. Perhaps you can imagine the difference that will come in your future. But I'm curious, what you thought of other people's answers and such. Maybe not just you, LB, but if anybody else wants to jump in, for sure.
Please.
I would like to jump in. I'm not muted, am I? No. Um, because of my age, I have been aware of the military industrial concept as a concept for a really long time. And now I think younger people use the term late stage capitalism. I think it's very similar to where we are, but it has been rolling like a snowball. And then with Alex's answer, defense spending, I'm struck by the similarities between those two things because all the money, not only the money that goes into defense, we call it defense, we'll call it a war economy, okay? Let's not call it defense, let's call it a gosh darn war economy. And the money and the impact on the climate and the devastation of lives and property all over the world in the service of United States economy. There's an awful lot of there's a lot there in terms of this situation that we find ourselves in now. And again, what Marianne talks about with, I think it's 30 trillion, maybe she says, went from the middle and lower class up into the 1%. This group of people are profiting off, fossil fuels, creating war machines, selling our war machines to other countries. So, here we are, and maybe people are listening, maybe they're not.
Well,
Really a
selling
war economy.
selling selling it back to ourselves to then give to other countries.
Mhm.
Like yeah, it's such a mess. And um I think that is a wonderful imagining of what if we had been able to stop that sooner? Where would we be now? Like, now um we don't have a really good persona in the rest of the world. Like, we think of ourselves as patriotic and loving freedom and um, good people, but other countries don't see us like that at all because all they see of us is this war machine. And and how that affects their lives, you know. And I think that it, not just with this topic, but also with other topics, you know, such as the environment or um, social justice, you know, the ERA would have been passed, it would have been ratified for sure as soon as it was available to do so if Martin Luther King Jr. had been a previous president, because I think that our government would have some moral fiber at this point.
I agree with that, Ree. And to just go back to the war, um, and what we have been charged in the world court as being complicit in, because right now they're saying that the United States of America in the world court is complicit for this that's happening in Israel. And Kim Iverson talked about this on her show, and I've heard some other people mention it as well. When those bombs and things drop, when people say, hey, I'm not political, doing nothing is doing something. Because if you're letting this come into power, you're part of this. Your hands are not clean. Because the children run to the Americans when they come to that country and they go, can you please tell America to stop doing this? Can you please tell the United States to stop doing this? Because when those bombs and that scrap and that metal and that heat drop on those children, do you know what's all over those bombs? USA. So as far as those children are concerned, we're the monster. So you guys are right. If Martin Luther King had been president, if we had to change the tone of this country, and we didn't have the industrial war machine running us as a selling to yourself, just corruption. Okay. If we didn't have that, we would not be seen by the whole world right now as complicit in genocide. We wouldn't have children going to sleep having nightmares right now with America, with the USA as the monster. That's who we're going to let represent us. And if we keep doing what we've been doing, we're going to keep getting what we didn't got. And we're going to keep getting some people like what's running it now and people like what's running it before that one.
Can we just say Biden? You know who's been in office for more than 50 years? Marianne keeps going back and saying, over the last 50 years, the middle class in this country has been decimated. Do you know who started in government 52 years ago? It was Joe Biden.
There you go. And if we want peace, which is what we're talking about today, what Marianne says, if you want this campaign to exist, if you want more than us, this cluster of people who are here having this discussion and the people who come with us today, if you just want us to have a chance for this to exist, this conversation to go on, go to Marianne 2024.com/donate, because guess what? It's not going to thin the vote. It's a primary. That's one thing. If we had, Martin Luther King as president, maybe we would have a better education system where children still got the education, where they knew the damn difference between a primary and, the presidential election. Because I've had so many grown people tell me they don't want to support Marianne in the primary, even though they love her, because they don't want to make it possible.
It doesn't make sense.
It's a primary.
Yeah.
This is like the beginning this is like civics 101, maybe it's even social studies, and Marianne talks about that too. When you don't have schools where our children are educated, how the hell are they going to know to get upset when their rights are trampled upon because they didn't even know they had any rights? What we got is kids now that know when people get on TV and they say, do this, do that, take this, cover your face, stay in your house, you go, yeah, and you do it. That's what our kids know. They don't even know they have rights.
Right.
So if we had Martin Luther King You know, if we had a Martin Luther King presidency leading to a Williamson presidency, there would be no industrial military complex. Wouldn't be such a thing. We wouldn't be in this situation that we're in right now. I know that. So I'm glad you guys brought that one up. What's another one? Because Oscar, I can't even remember. Don't get me going. I can't even remember what you said about if we had a Martin Luther King presidency.
Yours was wonderful, Oscar. I would love to hear a synopsis of what you said again, because it was very powerful.
Well, I don't remember. Well, I guess part of it. I mean, what Martin Luther King would have brought, and what I see Marianne bringing, what I talked about was empowerment. That he's going to that they both represent, and I don't know how to say this. They both have had success in raising the consciousness of the people, and the people have stepped in. People have stepped up, and that's going to make the difference. You know, and that's what he would have done. You know, I can't, and I don't know what else there is other than the fact that he was able to inspire and empower the people, and that's what's going to make a change. All these things, and none of the other, we've said it, none of the other candidates are coming close to even doing that, or have the capacity to do that. I mean, it's impossible. I have to say that, the frustrating thing is, though, she's doing that. She's doing it every single day. When she gets out there, the people are stepping in. The frustrating part, is not stepping. The frustrating is not doesn't seem to be. It's not seen to be. It's not moving fast enough. I mean, I'm just looking at this right now. What we're doing. We got just the four of us. And why haven't people stepped in? And I don't want to keep it. I don't think we don't need to answer that question. We just need to make it happen somehow. Get the people involved. The people not involved. We're doing our part. I was Dr. Cliff talked about, in a way, don't get frustrated. We are doing everything we can do, and every I guess we're one cell. I think he said, and our cell is moving on to attract other cells. But I think I'm a little discouraged about the time, the timing. We're running out of time.
Well, he said he had spoken about the observer effect.
Yeah.
And so that we don't, and as long as we get seen, we'll have an observer effect.
Yeah.
And at the moment, while we're just 4 people here in the room, and who knows who's on live stream, that might be a difficult thing to see. But we're here till 9:00, and I would be surprised if anybody would come on and stay on for 9 hours. We're kind of crazy here. We're extremely dedicated. We are willing to make sacrifices, sacrifice our whole day, all our free time to lend support to Marianne, because we believe in her so much. And so anybody who just sees a little bit of that in us it's going to stick with them, and they may not know how. So I want to tell a little story that I think is interesting. I spoke with my aunt the other day, and I was telling her all about all this stuff I'm doing with Martin Luther King and Marianne Williamson. And she's a retired history teacher that worked in inner city Atlanta her whole life. And I know she knows a lot about Martin Luther King. So I asked her this question. And I asked her, it's a what if Martin Luther King had not been assassinated and instead had been elected a president of the United States? What do you think would be different now? And she was kind of gobstopped. Like, she couldn't come up with an answer. She couldn't fathom that change. She didn't have any imagination. She's like, maybe I'm cynical, but I think it would be just as bad as it is right now. And, or she's like, maybe Trump would come sooner, or, and it really illustrated to me what Marianne has been talking about in terms of a lack of political imagination. And this is an educated woman. She reads the news, I see her posting stuff from like the New Yorker and um those kinds of publications. But what is it that has happened that has led to and I mean, she was troubled by it. And that's the good thing, is like she's like, "Oh my God, I can't imagine this. What's wrong? Why couldn't I imagine just anything? You can imagine anything, right? Why can't I put anything to this question?" And she came up with, "I'm complacent.
Ah,
I'm complacent."
yeah.
And you know, what a great thing to realize, because now she can move on. Like there's a she might choose to stay complacent. I don't know. I hope not. But now she can move on. I bet she's thinking at some point today something about this question. Well, what would it have been like if maybe 20 years ago, Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King had been a president? Then it wouldn't have been such a big deal that Obama was running. We would have already had a black president. All of those kinds of these hurdles that are so hard for us to jump over, it seems, we would have done that, which seems like, from my perspective, we would have done that at the time that they would have been very influential. It would have really changed our trajectory, because as Oscar was saying, Martin Luther King empowered people, but it wasn't just an individual growing up to their power. He empowered people to be in community with other people.
Mhm.
And right now, that is still such a hard thing to kind of imagine. If it wouldn't be a hard thing to imagine now, we'd have we'd have ways of describing, you know, um, this beloved community. We'd have a whole language for it. There'd be all these programs, all these places to go, all these things to do that involved the beloved community. But now all we have consumerism. So if you're having a bad day, go get yourself a Starbucks and a little plastic trinket and you'll feel better. That's the end of my little speech right there. But I just thought that was fascinating. So it's a wonderful question, not just for us, but also for other people. And I encourage anybody who watches this to ask other people this same question. What if Martin Luther King had not been assassinated and instead had become president of the United States? Now, I know he wasn't going for the presidency of the United States, but if he lived, he might have. He
Mm-hmm.
certainly seemed like he was heading that direction towards being a person who empowered more and more people and bigger circles of people. Eventually, that bigger circle turns into the United States,
I mean, he was on his way to Washington. We're coming to get our check. Did you
right?
see that little speech? We're coming to get our check. And he was just a baby, you know? And that's how I know how old I am when I get to look at Martin Luther King, who I've been studying since I was a peanut. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he was a baby. My oldest child is 39. My sons are 37 and 35. So hell yeah, he would have ran for president. If he didn't think of it, we would have told him. Jesse Jackson ran for president, you know,
Right?
one of his followers.
Gosh,
And
I was a little kid then.
yeah, yeah. And so, I'm old enough to remember when Jesse Jackson was running for president. This was the beginning of people wanting to be called African Americans. Oh, I asked my friend Ari Shin to come on because it takes him to bring up there he is. I said his name. I said his name. He's magical. It's Bob Ari Shin. I'm about to talk about the names, Ari Shin. And if Martin Luther King was president, and his audio is connecting, but they started because Jesse Jackson, they did a little thing on TV and they were showing all the presidential candidates. And they said that, the caucus came, they showed a little town in Greece and other people, like they showed their roots. And it was like these beautiful, exquisite roots in Europe and all this. And then when they went to Jesse Jackson, they showed the projects in Chicago or New York or something like that. And then Black people started saying, well, you know what? That's not our origin. We need to go to our origin like they do. And that's when they started saying African American. Because if you live long enough, you see, when I was a kid, it was like, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. And we were saying, I'm an Afro American. You were going out of, we were colored and we were this. We always are looking for our name. And then they came with, instead of Black, then you're supposed to be African American. And so I've gone through this whirlwind, and Ari Shin has gone through more than I want him to say hi in a minute. That's why I call myself now, and some people take issue with it, even Black people, and I don't care. That's the thing I love. I just turned 59, and I would always dread it being this old, but now I just don't give a damn. I don't care. I'm Black, blackety black ass Black, and I don't care if you don't like it. That's what I call myself. And it's really just being able to be self-determined, being able to define yourself, and being able to have that freedom to do that. Because sometimes, we didn't even used to have that freedom. And so if you want the freedom to be able to talk about what you want to talk about, if you want to keep that freedom, because what they're doing now is they're passing laws and bills that if you don't say what they want you to say, as far as what you think, these are real bills that are going through right now, that if you say something that they don't like, whoever they are, you can be arrested and go to jail. This is what's happening right now. I kid you not. Like why they got you distracted. If you think that you value, you might not be listening to me right now. But if you hear this sometime in the future, it's going to you spiritually right now. Go to Marianne2024.com/donate. Instead of having a coffee today or a sandwich today, $3, $4, $5, please, in honor of Dr. King, in honor of his student, Marianne Williamson, go and donate that $3, $4, $5 to Marianne2024.com/donate so that we can keep having the conversation, so that you guys don't kick yourself in the butt in May and go, wait a minute, this woman was running for president. I didn't even know. If I had known, I would have supported her. You don't want to get to that point. You want to have a chance to at least know.
Yeah, people might also want to look at that. I mean, I was very impressed with Reed's story. That word complacency. So I mean, that's your choice, really. You can be complacent, but I think you want to note the fact that that's what you're doing. Perhaps. I mean, if you're sold on somebody else, another candidate, fine. But I would look and ask that question yourself. Am I being complacent? Am I complacent? I mean, I was that person for sure. Right before this campaign. I got complacent. Not complacent. I actually chose I wasn't going to get involved at all. It was even worse than complacency, I guess. But at least I was conscious of my choice. So yeah, look at that word. Ask yourself, are you being complacent?
Mm-hmm.